Discover the shocking truth behind your endless fatigue. Is spiritual warfare to blame? In the small town of Mill Creek, an unsettling mystery lurked just beneath the surface. Every morning, the sun rose like a fiery ball, illuminating the sleepy streets, but by noon, the energy would wane like a candle flickering in the wind. Folks who once buzzed with life now trudged through their days, weary and diminished. It wasn't just a collective malaise, no, there was something darker, something lurking in the shadows. Whispers echoed in the local diner, where old men sipped their coffee like it was liquid courage. "You feel it too, right?" one would say, his voice trembling. "It's like we're being drained." Strange occurrences only thickened the air. Lights flickered in homes, dogs howled late into the night, and the air felt charged, as if a storm brewed in the distance. Once vibrant gardens wilted, their colors fading as if nature itself was succumbing to this unseen force. People began missing work, their absences scribbled off as fatigue on HR forms, but it had become more than just exhaustion. Each day, a tight chest gripped them like a vice, and a lump settled in their throats whenever they gathered in groups, murmurs of "what's happening to us?" palpable in the silence. Curiosity twisted like a knife, and soon, theories began to swirl. Some pointed to the old church on the hill. "Something's off up there," a teen remarked, eyes wide with fear. Others whispered about a traveler who had come through town months before, leaving behind an unsettling presence that lingered like smoke. The truth of it all hung heavily, a dark cloud that seemed to ensnare the very souls of Mill Creek's residents, and with every passing day, hope dwindled. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in ominous shades of crimson and orange, a small group gathered outside the church, their faces lit by the fading light. "We need to find out what's really happening," one of them said, determination glinting in her eye. As the door creaked open to the church, revealing shadows that whispered secrets only the brave dared to uncover, the air thickened with an unsettling electricity. What would they find inside? Was it truly spiritual warfare at play? The tension hung tightly, daring them to take the next step into darkness. The creaking of the old church door sent a shiver down Sarah's spine as she stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and something else, a palpable sense of dread that prickled at her skin. She glanced back at her friends, each one showing varying degrees of fear and resolve. Mark, the skeptic of the group, still shifted nervously, crossing his arms as if to protect himself from whatever mystery lay ahead. "Do you think it's the traveler?" he whispered, the flickering light from the overhead chandelier casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. "Maybe, but there's something deeper at play here," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Her heart raced, an erratic rhythm echoing the uncertainty in her mind. The interior was dimly lit, every corner shrouded in gloom. The smell of dampness and mildew mingled in the air, weaving a story of neglect that the townsfolk shied away from. As they moved deeper into the nave, the silence felt almost alive, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The flickering candles held in iron holders cast ghostly shapes along the stone walls, whispering tales of forgotten prayers. An unsettling thought gripped Sarah. What if they weren't alone? She felt eyes on her, as if unseen forces were scrutinizing their every move. "We should split up. We'll cover more ground that way," she suggested, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. Mark hesitated, glancing around nervously. "That's how horror movies start," he muttered nervously. "Come on, we need answers," she said, something desperate in her voice. "You take the basement, I'll check upstairs." Reluctantly, Mark nodded, and the group began to disperse. As Sarah made her way up the creaky staircase, she could feel her pulse quickening with every step. Passing through the rotting wooden door at the top, she realized she was in a frail chapel. Old wooden pews lined the walls beneath stained glass windows that depicted scenes of lofty redemption and dark punishment. Then, something caught her eye, a flicker of movement near the crumbling altar. Her breath caught in her throat as she approached, the air eerily cool despite the warmth suffusing the rest of the church. An old book lay open, pages fluttering as if touched by invisible hands. The text was ancient, written in a language she could barely grasp. Desperate to make sense of it, she leaned closer, only to feel a surge of energy pushing against her, a force both inviting and foreboding. Just then, she heard a soft gasp behind her. Startled, she spun around to see Lily, her friend, pale and wide-eyed. "Sarah. You need to see this," Lily said, voice trembling. She held a worn-out journal, its cover embossed with symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her curiosity piqued. "It's from the traveler," Lily exclaimed, trembling hands barely able to keep the journal steady. "He wrote about Mill Creek, about a curse." "Tell me, what does it say?" Sarah could barely contain her excitement and dread, but before Lily could respond, a deafening crash reverberated through the church, the ground shaking beneath them. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling, and Sarah's heart sank. Their sanctuary was becoming a prison with every moment that passed. "Run!" Mark shouted from the basement, his face pale and ashen as he rushed toward them. As they fled, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer just uncovering secrets, they were awakening something that had long been asleep. Perhaps it was not just about fatigue anymore. What had they unleashed? What horrors awaited them in the wake of their curiosity? A sudden wind slammed the church door shut behind them, locking their fate with a thunderous echo. The night deepened, swallowing them whole as darkness curled around Mill Creek. And then, the book, still on the altar, glowed faintly, as if waiting for them to return. The tension in the church hung like a heavy fog, thick and unyielding. Sarah, Lily, and Mark stumbled into the night, gasping for breath and glancing nervously over their shoulders. The door had slammed shut with a force that rattled their bones, leaving a silence in its wake that felt sinister. "Did you see that?" Lily asked breathlessly, her eyes darting toward the church entrance. "The book, it was glowing." "That's not important right now," Mark snapped, his voice cutting through the air sharp and frantic. "We need to get away from here." But Sarah felt it, an inexplicable pull that drew her back, a magnetic force whispering promises of answers. "No, wait. We can't just leave it like that," she insisted, her heart pounding in her chest. The thrill of the unknown mixed with dread, awakening a hunger for knowledge deep within her. "Are you crazy?" Mark retorted, clenching his fists. "That place is cursed." The streetlights flickered, casting trembling shadows that danced across the pavement. Silence enveloped them, the town seemingly frozen in time, as if the entire universe paused to eavesdrop on their fear. Suddenly, a scream pierced the stillness, echoing through the emptiness. It sliced through Sarah's thoughts like a knife, freezing her in place. It came from the alleyway behind them, where darkness pooled like spilled ink. "Did you hear that?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's eyes widened, but Sarah felt a strange pull toward the sound. It called to her, it beckoned her into the depths of the night, the thrill of fear intertwined with the urge to uncover the truth. "We have to see who it was," she said, the words tumbling out before she fully processed them. "Are you out of your mind?" Mark protested, but already Sarah had started moving toward the alley, her heart racing. She had to know. Lily followed hesitantly, unsure but unwilling to let Sarah go alone. Mark lagged behind, casting worried glances at the church, clearly conflicted. They stepped into the alley, the shadows swallowing them whole. The walls were damp and cold, and the smell of decay rose sharply in the air. Their footsteps echoed as they ventured deeper, the night growing thicker with an ominous energy. A figure stirred at the far end. Sarah squinted, adrenaline surging through her system. It looked like a woman, her back hunched and her hair hanging like a curtain, obscuring her face. The faint light from the street barely reached them, but something about the woman felt wrong, twisted. "Excuse me?" Sarah called, her voice wavering but determined. "Are you okay?" The woman turned slowly, and a gasp escaped Lily's lips. The woman's eyes were wide, but it wasn't the fear that startled them. It was the darkness within her gaze, the depths of sorrow and anguish that threatened to pull them in. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, only a guttural sound, a moan that carried the weight of despair. Then, without warning, the woman lunged forward, her hands clawing at the air as if reaching for something invisible. Sarah managed to step back just in time, but the woman's movements were frantic and unpredictable. "What the hell is happening?" Mark shouted, his voice laced with fear. Lily started to cry, the sound raw and painful against the stifling air. Everything felt unreal, a nightmare unfurling before their eyes. The woman fell to her knees, trembling violently, though it seemed she was racked with an invisible force beyond her control. "Help me," the woman gasped, her voice a whisper laced with desperation. Before Sarah could respond, a chilling laugh echoed through the alley, slick and sinister. Shadows twisted around them, and the air vibrated with a dark energy that both captivated and terrified. It became painfully clear that they were no longer just dealing with a history steeped in secrets. They had stepped into something far worse, a living nightmare. What was the woman trying to escape? And who or what had they awakened on this dreadful night? As the shadows danced to an unseen rhythm, Sarah felt a horrible realization dawn upon her: this was only the beginning. The woman on the ground continued to tremble, her body racked with spasms that seemed to pull her deeper into whatever darkness she was fighting. The air around them thickened, and dread seeped into Sarah's bones as the echo of that sinister laughter lingered, mocking their fear. "Get back!" Mark shouted, stepping forward, fear evident in his posture. "We shouldn't even be here. This is insane." Lily clutched Sarah's arm, her grip vice-like, as tears streamed down her cheeks. "We can't just leave her," she insisted, her voice a fragile whisper. "Why not?" Mark shot back. She's not right. Look at her. Whatever's going on here, it's not safe." But Sarah felt an undeniable pull, an urge to understand the pain in the woman's eyes, the agony that seemed to bind her to the ground. As she took a cautious step forward, she called out softly, "What happened to you?" The woman froze, her body momentarily still. Slowly, she raised her head, revealing a face marked by despair, streaks of dirt and tears mingling on her cheeks. It comes for me," she rasped, her voice barely above a whisper, as if each word siphoned her remaining strength. "What comes for you?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. She sensed she was close to uncovering something monumental. "We can help you." The woman's gaze intensified, her eyes swirling with an inky darkness that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "It awakens, it waits. The book it calls." "Stop talking about the book," Mark shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We need to get out of here." But as he turned to leave, the shadows shifted, dark tendrils slithering across the alley walls, deepening their gloom. The air crackled with otherworldly tension, and a voice seemed to whisper through the shadows, promising secrets, revenge, and despair. "No!" Sarah shouted, her resolve hardening. "We're not leaving without answers." She looked down at the woman. "Just tell us what we need to know." With a surge of determination, Sarah dropped to her knees, clasping the woman's trembling hands in her own. "Please, don't give up. You're not alone." In that moment, the woman's body stilled, her breathing becoming shallow but steady. "It needs blood," she murmured, and Sarah felt the chill of those words grip her heart. "It thrives on fear and it's hungry." A crack of thunder resonated from above, startling them all. Mark jumped, casting nervous glances at the approaching storm clouds. The air grew colder, the shadows growing taller, pulsing with energy, as if the very ground beneath them was alive. "Get away from her!" Mark screamed. He pulled Sarah back, but she resisted. The woman's eyes darted past Sarah, her expression morphing to horror. "It's here!" she shrieked, her voice breaking. "Run!" Before any of them could react, a rush of dark figure materialized from the gloom, a swirling mass like smoke given form. It poured into the alley, snarling and hissing, wrapping around everything in its path. The cold seeped into their skin, gripping all three of them like a vice. "Run!" Sarah shouted, urging Mark and Lily up. They stumbled back, fighting the instinct to scream as they turned to escape. But the alley twisted and warped, the entrance vanishing like a mirage. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat as the three of them stood together, fear mingling with desperation, and then, in an instant, as if the shadows themselves had eyes, the air vibrated with a terrible, ancient power. The echo of the woman's plea for help rang in her mind. "It waits for you." Sweat dripped from her brow. The darkness circled, closing in. And just as they thought they'd turned to flee, the voice of the woman broke through again, consuming everything. "The truth is worse than you know." What had they awakened, and was escape even possible? As the darkness tightened its grasp, Sarah felt a sinister pull, both terrifying and alluring. How deep did this darkness go, and could they survive the truth? The shadows thickened, swirling like a violent storm around them, each tendril slithering forward as if it had its own will. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, echoing her mounting terror. They were trapped, the darkness was hungry, and she could feel its eyes on her, waiting to strike. "Where do we go?" Lily gasped, her voice a mix of panic and disbelief. Mark's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead as his gaze darted around, desperate for an escape. "There has to be a way out," Mark shouted. His panic was palpable, pressing down on Sarah like a weight. She could see the darkness swirling closer, a wall of shadows intent on swallowing them whole. "Look!" Sarah cried, spotting a flicker of light at the far end of the alley. It flickered like a candle, offering a sliver of hope. "There! We have to move." "No! It's a trap!" Mark shouted, but the fear in Sarah's eyes must have softened his resolve. He took a shaky breath, reaching for Lily and pulling her forward. "If it's a chance, we have to take it." As they hurried toward the light, the air grew colder, heavy with an unnatural chill. Every step felt like wading through molasses. The whispers intensified, a mass of voices intertwining, taunting them with long-forgotten secrets and lost souls. "It wants us to doubt," Sarah thought, fighting against the heaviness in her limbs. Each step was like running through a dream, the shadows trying to drag her back into their cold embrace. "Don't look back. Just keep moving." But as they neared the light, doubt crept in, manifesting in the form of an insidious thought. What if the light wasn't salvation? What if it was merely a bait, luring them deeper into the darkness? "We need to hurry," Lily urged, her voice small, barely audible over the chaotic whispers. Sarah glanced back for a split second, and what she saw sent a jolt of dread through her. The woman lay still now, her face turned to the heavens, as if she had given in completely. A strength in the shadows surged, pulsing as if it knew victory was near. The sight awakened something deep within Sarah. "We can't leave her." "Are you crazy?" Mark's voice cracked with urgency. "We can't help her now. We need to save ourselves." But the woman's eyes still glimmered with a desperate plea as she whispered, "The truth is the key." In that moment, Sarah understood that the darkness wouldn't allow them to escape until it had claimed what it wanted, and it thrived on their fear. The woman's blood, her sacrifice, was merely the beginning. They would have to face the truth, there was no escaping it. Without thinking, Sarah rushed back, leaving Mark and Lily behind. "What are you doing?" Mark shouted, the panic in his voice rising sharply. "Wait!" Sarah called out, kneeling beside the woman. "Tell me what I need to know. How can we stop this?" The woman's gaze locked onto Sarah's, a flicker of recognition igniting in the depths of her darkened eyes. "You must learn from the book." The shadows surged closer as Sarah felt the pull of the darkness. "What book? Where do I find it?" The woman's voice quivered, strained but insistent. In the shadows and the light suddenly, the cold wrapped around Sarah, pulling her back towards her friends. She stumbled but stood firm against the weight bearing down on her. "Come on!" Mark shouted from the flickering light. "We're leaving." But the shadows were relentless, squeezing tighter, their sinister laughter ringing in her mind. "The book, it calls for you." The woman's voice echoed, blending into the cacophony of dark laughter. As Sarah felt herself being dragged closer to the shadows, she made a choice. "I'll find it," she cried, willing the words to break through the chaos swirling around her. "I'll uncover the truth." With that, the darkness leaped forward, embracing her completely. Dread washed over her as she disappeared into the void, visions whirling around her, glimpses of ancient knowledge, dark symbols, and the promise of something terrible yet enlightening. Somewhere in that suffocating abyss, a new thought struck her: was the truth truly worth the price they might have to pay? And as she surrendered to the darkness, a final question burned in her mind. What lay waiting in the depths of that book, and could she brave its revelations without losing herself completely? The darkness swallowed Sarah whole. It wrapped around her like a thick fog, smothering every sound, every sense. Time lost all meaning, stretching into an eternity. She felt her heart pulse wildly, matching the chaos in her mind. The pull of the shadows was heavy, but deep down, an ember of determination flickered. "Focus," she whispered to herself, trying to break through the haze. "The book. I have to find the book." Suddenly, she was standing in a dimly lit chamber. It reeked of damp earth and decay, a grotto hidden away in the depths of despair. Flickering candles lined the walls, their flames casting a sinister glow. A heavy tome rested upon an ancient pedestal in the center of the room, its pages filled with cryptic symbols that danced like living creatures. The book sent out ripples of energy, resonating with her fear, yet whispering promises of power. She could feel it tugging at her very soul, as if recognizing that she was the one to unlock its secrets. Stepping forward was like moving through tar, each inch thick with trepidation. "Sarah," a voice echoed around her, soft yet commanding. It felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Who's there?" she called out, pulse quickening. "Do not fear the truth," the voice danced through the shadows. "Embrace it." She gritted her teeth, reaching for the book. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of lost souls. Each faint echo clawed at her sanity, playing her worst fears on repeat. Images flashed through her mind: Mark's horrified face, Lily's trembling hands, the woman begging her for help. They were counting on her. The instant her fingers brushed the book's cover, the shadows screamed in rage. A sharp pain shot through her hand, spreading like ice through her veins. "This is your path," the voice said, rising over the din. "Only you can decide." "That's what you think," she shouted, a surge of audacity pushing the shadows back. As she flipped through the pages frantically, strange words captured her attention: "Fear breeds power, but truth breaks the chains." With every word, her resolve solidified. The darkness roared, but Sarah held her ground. "Listen to me," Sarah commanded. "I will not be your puppet. I choose my own fate." Suddenly, the shadows lunged at her, a wave of pure malice. They surged towards her, mouths filled with howls of discontent. But the book pulsed with light, illuminating the chamber with brilliance. The energy surged forth, burning away the darkness that had coiled around her. "Freedom lies in the truth, not the fear," Sarah cried, her voice rising like a beacon. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in desperation. Their grip weakened, releasing Sarah into the light. The book's power enveloped her, showing her visions of the past, how the shadows commanded fear, and how truth could unravel their hold. As the tendrils ebbed, Sarah caught a glimpse of something in the far corner of her mind. Images of Mark and Lily crying out for help emerged, drawing her back. She couldn't leave them. They needed her, just as she needed them. In an instinctual burst, Sarah reached deep within the abyss, feeling for the strings that connected her to her friends. Just as she thought she'd lost them to the darkness, her voice cut through. "Mark. Lily. I'm coming back." With one final thrust, she pulled the truth from the book, a blazing weapon of knowledge. The shadows screamed in agony as she released the truth into the air. A brilliant light exploded, shattering the darkening comfort of the void. Sarah awoke with a gasp, back in the alley, but the atmosphere felt different. The warmth of the flickering light enveloped her. "Sarah!" Mark shouted, relief washing over his terrified face. "You came back." But as her eyes fell on the book resting beside her, a lingering question gnawed at her. Would the shadows ever truly let them go? Time was ticking, and a deeper darkness was still lurking. Sarah's heart raced as Mark breathed in, relief pouring out of him. It felt almost surreal. The shadows should have devoured her, yet here she was, alive and back in the chaotic mess of their alley. She glanced around, the corners of her world sharp and defined, bathed in the flickering glow of the streetlight that stood sentinel against the night. But was it truly over? What happened? What did you see? Mark's voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and hope. I found the book." Sarah stammered, her fingers brushing over the ancient tome beside her. Its cover felt warm, almost alive under her touch. "What book?" Lily's voice came from behind, breaking the air with an edge of fear. She stepped forward, her face pale and sunken, eyes wide with concern. As soon as the memory of the gloom and torment flooded back, the words burst forth from Sarah. "It's about power, fear, and truth. It's not just a book, it has energy." Lily's expression darkened. "Energy? What kind of energy?" The air grew thick with anticipation. Sarah hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at her. "It felt like it could bind us or free us. But the shadows, they're not gone. I felt them clinging to me even as I came back." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, brow furrowing. "The shadows, they want something from us. They feed on fear." She plucked the book from the ground, clutching it to her chest as if it were some kind of shield. "If we don't figure this out, they'll come back." Lily stepped closer, peering at the book. "You read something in there, didn't you? Can it help us?" "Yes, but..." Sarah faltered, recalling the scream of anguish as she released the truth into the air. "It demands a price." A flicker of terror swam across Mark's features. "What kind of price?" "I don't know," Sarah exclaimed, throwing her hands in the air. "But I could feel it deep inside, a connection that binds us to whatever lurks in the dark." Suddenly, the streetlights flickered violently, casting erratic shadows across the alley. A scream pierced the air, shattering the tension like glass. The sound came from farther up the street, echoing with a brutal urgency. "Come on!" Sarah yelled, adrenaline surging. They ran instinctively towards the source, hearts pounding in sync. As they turned the corner, they skidded to a halt. A silhouette stood before them, cloaked and ominous against the wavering light. "You think you can escape?" it hissed, voice dripping with malice. Sarah fought back panic. "What do you want?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face twisted with torment and a hollow smile. "The shadows will never let you go. You've awakened them again." Before Sarah could respond, a gust of wind swept through the alley, biting cold and heavy with whispers. Shadows swirled around her, flaring to life. "Lily!" Mark shouted, eyes wide with dread as he reached for her. But when he turned back, another figure emerged from the depths, moving swiftly and silently, like a predator converging on its prey. "Run!" Sarah cried as they took off, heart thundering in her chest, but in the back of her mind, doubt crept in. She could still feel the book pulsing beside her. What had she truly unleashed? Would the secrets she discovered save them, or would it lead to their undoing? As they dashed through the shadows engulfing the street, one thing became painfully clear: the darkness was far from defeated, and Sarah had unwittingly opened a door that could never be closed again, what lurked just beyond the edge of their understanding. The chase had only just begun. They raced down the street, legs pumping, breath coming in ragged gasps. Fear twisted in Sarah's gut, the shadows still whispering in her ears. Mark and Lily stayed close, but the shadowy figures behind them were hungry, drawing nearer, merging into the darkness, like night itself was alive and against them. "Where do we go?" Lily shouted as they turned another corner, searching desperately for a place to hide. I don't know," Sarah replied, spinning her head around, panic making it hard to think. "Just keep running." Her mind raced, reeling through fragmented memories of the book. Had she opened a portal? Had she done this to them? The thought was a punch to the gut. What if the shadows were rising because of her? Suddenly, they stumbled upon a darkened park, its trees looming eerily in the dim light. The park was their only option. Pushing through the low-hanging branches, they ducked into the thicket, breathing hard. Leaves crunched underfoot, and a chill spread through the air, heavier than before. "Can they still see us?" Mark panted, glancing over his shoulder. His eyes were wild, darting about as if each rustle might spell disaster. "I don't know," Sarah said, pressing her back against a tree. The bark felt rough, grounding her in the chaos. She held the book tightly, as if its weight could somehow shield them from the encroaching doom. They huddled together, sharing a moment of silence, the shadows lurking just beyond the bushes. The quiet felt sinister, wrapping around them like a shroud. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, wishing the shadows away, but the book pulsed against her chest, a heartbeat of its own. "What did you read?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper, anxiety etching deep lines on his forehead. "It talked about binding energy," Sarah started, regret flooding her chest. "About sacrifices. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it could help us." Lily shifted uneasily. "Help us? Or trap us?" The air felt electrified, thick with unspoken fears. A low moan rolled through the trees, the sound so mournfully haunting that it wormed its way into their bones. Sarah's heart lurched. "Listen," she whispered urgently, the quiet snapping like a taut string that in the stillness. They heard it, the soft footfalls creeping closer, echoing the haunting whispers that had chased them. "There." Mark pointed, his eyes wide. A figure stepped between the trees, its form cloaked in darkness, too vague to define, but menacing nonetheless. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "We have to go, now." "Where?" Lily asked, her voice tinged with desperation. Before Sarah could respond, a sprawling shadow surged forward, from the depths of twisted roots and gnarled branches. It moved with force, coiling like smoke, reaching for them. Her instincts kicked in. "Run!" Sarah yelled, breaking from the hiding place. The others followed, adrenaline driving them deeper into the park. Branches lashed out at them, scraping and clawing. A thick fog rolled in, pressing against their skin. Sarah directed their path, heart hammering in her chest, feeling the shadows clawing at their heels. She could sense them, the lurking dread. They burst through a dense grove and found themselves at a small clearing bathed in moonlight. This was it, she thought. The only chance to regroup. But the figure from before materialized, locking eyes with Sarah, its smile a twisted reminder of her failure. "Your fear fuels the shadows," it hissed, voice slicing through the air like ice. "You cannot escape what you have awakened. Stop!" Sarah shouted, clutching the book, feeling a surge of warmth pulse through her. "What do you want from us?" "Everything," it replied, its form shifting, becoming more solid, more invasive. The sky darkened above them, swirling like a storm. In that moment, Sarah realized, the book had the answer. But at what price? Just then, a loud crash resonated nearby, drawing the figure's attention. The ensuing chaos created an opening. With pounding hearts and no time to spare, they shot back through the shadows deeper into the unknown, deeper into peril. What awaited them now? They had only begun to scratch the surface of the darkness beneath their feet. They ran without looking back, fear propelling them into the depths of the park. The branches swept at their faces, filled with dread that felt all too alive. Each step pounded like a drum, the rhythm echoing their racing hearts. Sarah could hear the shadows behind them, the whispers growing louder, angrier, as if they were drawing strength from her fear. "Where do we go?" Mark gasped, barely keeping pace with Sarah. "Just keep moving," she urged, breathless and desperate. They pushed through underbrush, desperate for an escape that felt impossibly out of reach. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. What if the darkness consumed them? Her mind raced. The book. She could barely recall the details now, but it had talked about fear and shadows. "We need to remember," she yelled, her voice sharp with urgency. "We need to think about the book." They stumbled upon a twisted metal playground, its rusted framework looming like skeletal fingers against the night sky. A slide stood, ghostly and dull under the pale moonlight. Sarah's eyes darted around, and she spotted an old shed beyond the swings. "In there!" she shouted, sprinting toward it. Lily and Mark followed, breath catching as they squeezed through the opening. Darkness enveloped them, the scent of wet wood and earth filling the cramped space. They leaned against the walls, hearts racing. "Do you think they can find us here?" Mark whispered. "Not if we stay quiet," Sarah replied, trying to calm her racing heart. But doubt seeped in, gnawing at her as shadows flickered just beyond the door. She clutched the book tighter, feeling its pulse match her own frantic rhythm. "What did happen?" Lily murmured, her voice trembling. "Why did we come here? Was it the book? Was it your fault, Sarah?" A pit formed in Sarah's stomach. "I didn't know. I thought it could help us learn, that it could show us a way out." She glanced at Mark and Lily, seeing their fear mirrored in each other's eyes. "What did it say about sacrifices?" Mark asked. "Did you read anything that could help us now?" Her breath hitched at the memory. It mentioned that fear can bind energy, but it didn't say how. She felt the shadows crawl along the edges of her mind, speaking of darkness and desperation. "But I can still feel it. The energy." A low rumble echoed outside, shaking the shed. Sarah pressed her ear against the wooden door. The whispers grew louder, swirling thick as fog, wrapping around them like chains. "We need to confront it," she said, staring wide-eyed at her friends. "We need to face these shadows. They might be the only way to find a way out." "What if they take us?" Lily's voice cracked, her hands trembling. "We have to try," Sarah affirmed, a sudden determination taking root within her. I think before she could finish, the door splintered inward, shadows spilling through the frame, consuming the dim light. A figure materialized, blurring the lines between dark and reality. It stood there, darker than the night itself, merging with the shadows around them. "Your fear has led you here," it hissed, voice thick with malice. "And I will thrive off it." Fear prickled along Sarah's skin. She knew they were out of time. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Your energy, your fear, it's a feast." It reached toward them, smoke swirling in its wake. Stricken, Sarah instinctively opened the book, flipping pages frantically under the dim, flickering light. Her eyes darted across the text, searching for anything that might hold the key, something that could shift the balance. The figures flinched, shadows flickering with uncertainty. A sudden spark ignited within her mind. Mark. Lily. Calm your fear. We can push back. She felt power surge through her as she focused, the book radiating warmth in her hands. Just focus. She repeated, feeling their collective fear turn into something tangible. As their minds joined, confronting the darkness, light pierced through like a beam of hope against the encroaching shadows. Now! She shouted, and they channeled their determination forward, a beacon igniting in the suffocating dark. But just as they surged forward, the shadows wailed, swelling up around them, thrashing against their energy. Then came an explosion of sound, a deafening cacophony that rattled their bones. Sarah gasped, heart racing as she felt the surge slip from her fingers. The shadows were not just fighting back, they were clawing toward her, hungry for more, what lay beyond their determined stand. With each pulse of the darkness, the shadows pressed closer, and then, something unexpected occurred. A frantic whisper rose, cutting through the chaos. Betrayal is coming, the voice warned. It's never just shadows, and in that instant, Sarah realized, their bond might just be their greatest weakness. What had they truly unleashed? The shadows recoiled momentarily, confused by the light that fought against their thick, suffocating darkness. But Sarah could sense their anger boiling beneath the surface, and her heart raced. Time was running out, and she knew if they didn't act fast, they'd be consumed. Keep going. She urged, choking back fear. The shadows hissed around them, but their combined focus seemed to weaken the edges of the dark figure. Trust in the truth. Mark shouted, pushing forward with newfound resolve. Let it guide us. Their hearts raced, synchronizing into a rhythmic beat against the chaos as they drew strength from one another. Sarah felt the warmth of the book in her hands, echoing their determination. Together. She shouted, rallying her friends. We can do this. With a collective breath, they manifested their fear, channeling it not as weakness, but as a powerful force of energy. The dark figure shrank beneath their unyielding light as it shrieked, its shape twisting, contorting like smoke in the wind. It reached towards them, its shadowy fingers grasping hungrily. Your fear is my feast. It roared, but the tide was turning. No! Sarah cried defiantly, her voice cutting like a blade through the fog. We refuse to feed you any longer. In a moment of clarity, she recalled the book's warning about the nature of shadows and truth. We have to let go, let the truth destroy the fear that binds us. Realization dawned on her, and she quickly began to recite the ancient phrases she'd read, words that reverberated with the strength of her will. Instinctively, Mark and Lily mirrored her, their voices rising together as one powerful chorus, unleashing all they had into the void. The shadows writhed, a scream reverberating from their depths as the light surged through, bright and unyielding. This is our truth. We are stronger together. The air trembled violently, and the darkness fought with desperation, but this time, Sarah felt unwavering courage flooding her veins, a surge she'd never known before. It was the truth, pure and untainted, coursing through her as the book pulsed with incandescent light. As they continued to chant, a fissure opened in the darkness, releasing blinding rays that filled the park with warmth and clarity. The shadows howled, fizzling away as they couldn't withstand the onslaught of truth. And one by one, they unraveled, the shadow's grip breaking as Sarah and her friends liberated themselves. With a final scream of agony, the dark figure collapsed in on itself, absorbing the remnants of its own darkness. Then silence fell. Gone were the pinpricks of despair, allowing the chill of the night air to wrap around them like a comforting embrace. The book lay before them, glowing softly, casting a gentle light, a reminder of the battle they'd just fought. I can't believe we did it. Lily exclaimed, breathless and shaking, a spark of disbelief glowing in her eyes. Mark nodded, relief washing over him. We turned the tide together. It was our bond that saved us. But as they caught their breath, unease settled in the pit of Sarah's stomach. She knelt down, her fingers brushing the worn pages of the book. But at what cost? she murmured, looking back to where the shadows had vanished. Their victory felt fragile, a cautious new dawn glinting in the moonlight, yet uncertainty lingered. Had they truly defeated the darkness, or just pushed it back for now? Maybe it's a cycle, Mark pondered aloud, his brow furrowed. Maybe the shadows can't be vanquished forever. Sarah's heart sank. It was true, the book spoke of endless cycles of fear and truth, each one feeding into the next. Our connection to it isn't just a bond, it's a responsibility, she said quietly, glancing at her friends. We'll have to guard against what lies beyond the light. The gravity of their encounter settled on them like an anchor. They were forever changed, but even in that weighty realization, a flicker of hope ignited. There was power in knowing the truth, power that could illuminate the dark corners of the world, their world, and the dark unknowing. Let us head back together, Sarah suggested, a determined gleam igniting in her eye. We can share what we learned. Maybe we can use it to help others. Lily and Mark nodded, steadfast in their pact. Together, they lifted the book, and with the moonlight guiding their way, they slowly made their way out of the park. Mill Creek still felt heavy, but with each step, they could feel the chains of shadow loosening. They would face whatever lay ahead, a dawn of potential, of reformation, and a community rekindled. As they walked toward the light of Mill Creek, Sarah knew they would meet new challenges, but they were ready. They had each other, and above all, they had the strength that comes from knowing their own truth. Let us make it a place filled with light, Mark stated, their path clear ahead. Yeah, Sarah agreed, looking at her friends, a smile blooming. We are ready. And with that, the trio stepped into the night, the bond of truth lighting their way, ready to forge a future where shadows would never have power over them again. Now, before you go, listen up. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could change everything for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and tell the world that you want more thrilling content. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What's next for Sarah, Mark, and Lily? And last but definitely not least, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. It's your moment to support the channel. Let us keep this adventure alive.